To dimension object number 6 on the orthographic drawing problems sheet, we will use some of our construction lines in order to lay this out. We need to think about some of the best places to put our dimensions as before we start dimensioning. Starting with some of the lengths. I have the width of this little tower on the front of the part, but I want to show it in the top view where I see the features shape. So I'm going to show that in the top view. Same with the other side of that upper area, and the notch would be best shown in the top view. Overall length I could show in the top view as well. I need to show the diameter and location for this 3/4 inch hole and the width of the part. So we'll start with the features of this upper area. No dimension should be closer than a 1/2 inch, so I'm going to actually measure 1/2 inch out. And knowing that I'm going to put several dimensions here, I can measure another 1/4 inch away from that, because the rule is the first dimension should be a 1/2 inch away, and every subsequent dimension is a 1/4 inch away from that. So I'm going to mark a third step of dimensions. Whether I need it or not, I don't know, but I'd rather have the mark there before I start. I am going to dimension this using dimension lines on the outside of my extension lines. I want to measure and mark the width of the gap and the overall length of the part. I think it would be best to show the overall length of this space in the front view, where I see the actual height and width of that component, of this raised feature. I'm going to show the overall length in my top view, however. Notice I've left a break in my dimension lines for where I'm going to put the dimension. In my front view, I'm going to measure an inch, 1/2 inch up, so I can dimension the overall width of this raised area. Next, I'm going to put in some extension lines for these dimensions. This extension line is going to continue all the way down. I'm actually going to cheat this because I'm going to erase a portion of this as I'm rethinking how to lay out my dimensions as I'm looking at the part. I have this extension line, which works for the 1/2 inch and the 1 inch width here. Notice how the extension line extends past the dimension line slightly, and it does not touch the object. And this is where I'm going to correct one of my dimensions. I'm going to keep the length of the part with the front view, and I'm going to erase a portion of this extension line over here so it's less confusing. I'm going to use an eraser shield to erase a portion of this so I don't mess up my good line. I can put arrows in. And remember, the proportion for your arrows should be about 1/3 the height for the length. So if this is about 3/8 of an inch long, the height should be an 1/8 inch. If I put a ruler on it to check this arrow, you can see that it's actually more like a 1/4 inch in length. In about 3/32, it's a little bit bigger than a 1/16 of an inch. So it's about within proportion. It's important to keep things thin and neat so that the drawing doesn't get messy and confusing. The height for my dimensions, you should use guidelines so you have 1/8 inch heights for numbers. So that's a 1/2 inch height or length. The width of the notch is 1 inch. Overall for that section was 2 inches. Overall for the part was 3 3/4. If you're confused on how long or how wide something is, refer back to the sheet. When I constructed this U-shaped component before, I measured the 1/2 inch and the 1 inch width and the other 1/2 inch width for this tower. You could also measure the back of the part where you have these markings showing 1, 2, 3, 4 1/2 inch spaces equaling at 2 inches. That's my 2 inch, same as it is on the sheet. I also want to measure some of the heights. I have the flange, the 1/2 inch height of the flange. I could show it in my side view, but it would be better to be shown in the front view where I see the actual height of that flange. While I'm marking that, I think I want to mark out the height for my block. So with my ruler again, I'm going to mark a 1/2 inch and a 1/4 inch distance. I put in my dimension line and my other dimension line. I'm going to draw my arrows in. Again, the arrows, thin and neat, and they should always point to the extension lines. Your extension lines, again, should be thin and dark and should not touch the object. If by chance they're too close, or if they accidentally touch the object, you can take an eraser shield again, mask off the area that you don't want to be erased, erase some of that extension line so that it's a little bit neater, and then proceed with putting in your dimensions. 1/2 inch height, 1.5 inch height. We'll proceed with the circles in the next video.